Now, please welcome Maneet Ahuja, Senior Editor, Forbes.
Hello, everyone. We're so excited to have you join us for this critical discussion on rethinking food service for 2021. We know this has been a very challenging year for restaurants, of which an estimated 1/3 face the serious risk of closure. That's why we're here to help you prepare for the path ahead. After today, you'll be able to walk away with tangible advice and best business practices to help you pandemic proof your business.
Now, please welcome our panelists. George Turkette, Executive Chef, Owner, Butcher, Salamiist, Turchetti's Salumeria. Lior Koren, Product Manager, Restaurants, Square. Emery Whalen, Owner and CEO, QED Hospitality. And Nabeel Alamgir, Co-Founder and CEO, Lunchbox.
Well, thank you for that intro, and thank you to our panelists for joining us here today. I think a great place to start is with a bird's eye view of the industry and some perspective. Nabeel, you've spent a decade in every corner of the restaurant industry before assembling your third startup, Lunchbox. Can you tell us a little bit about how Lunchbox works to help restaurants keep their profits without third-party fees, and how your company has helped restaurants during the pandemic?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. So Lunchbox started by accident, as most great companies do, or good companies do. I don't want to say great yet. That's still, jury's out the door still for that one. But I came to the country 15 years ago. Since then, I've worked in hospitality, started as a busboy at a New York City restaurant called Bear Burger. Stayed there for 10 years and worked, grew up the ranks all the way to CMO and grew that business to 40 locations across 4 countries. And I was always trying to chase what Sweet Green has built. Huge fan, love everything they do. Right? It was really expensive, really hard, and I was so frustrated trying to build a digital system that they have built. When I couldn't, I decided to leave Bear Burger, a place that raised me, if you will, and I realized that other restaurateurs are frustrated with this as well. What are we frustrated about, and what is Lunchbox trying to solve? It's 2 things. It's very simple. One is, what Domino's and Sweet Green and Panera has built. Let's make that easier for everyone to build. Let's make it easy for everyone to go ahead and try virtual, or maybe try curbside and try things that sound complicated, but they're really not. I'm not a technologist. I just look like one, but I'm not a technologist by any means. So they're really easy things to build, and we wanted to make it accessible. And number 2, we wanted to go ahead and convert Grubhub, Uber Eats, those third-party sales to direct sales. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they're a discovery channel. They shouldn't be your only channel of getting online orders. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to be for new customers, not all your customers. Mm-hmm. And the pandemic has taught us anything is we need to be dependent like other industries have, and we need to talk to our customers directly, because that's the business we're in. We're in the business of, if someone has come in regularly, let's say, Emery has come in regularly, and I know that her favorite drink is X. It's, I see her, it's her 4th time this month. Let's go ahead and get one in the house. That's our job. And we wanted to bring those moments digitally to go ahead and, connect restaurateurs with their guests. So that's what we do. And that's how we got started.
Well, it's an interesting time to start a company like this, especially in the pandemic, right? So have you seen that huge traffic flow of restaurants leaning on tools like yours, like Lunchbox?
We have, a good group of customers. That's a bittersweet response. I have a bittersweet response to that, which is, there's so many restaurants that need help. So we have a lot of new customers coming in, and that's wonderful as a business. A lot of customers couldn't make it to us, right? It's become a parlor game of how many restaurants are closing in America this year. Every month, the number seems to change, and now it's at 110,000 restaurants. That's 1/6 of every restaurant in the country. We've seen some of our favorite restaurants close already. And even though we do see a great amount of education being done, even though we know that the restaurant industry is gritty and can handle anything and will recover and rebounds, we also are seeing a lot of them that have not made it. You need some traction. You need at least 20% direct orders before pandemic has started for you to have some footing in there to say, all right, let's build on this. If you're less than 5%, it's too late. It's time to shut the door. And that's the sad reality of the business.
Wow. So can you tell us a little bit about your Help Main Street initiative and how it helps local restaurants?
Yeah. So in March of this year, when we were not so successful company, did not have a lot of clients, and had a lot of free time to do and a lot of great engineers. We wanted to go ahead and do something, right? When we found out that weekend that, in New York, de Blasio just announced that all the restaurants were closing, we did the only thing we can do, which is do something and code and build and design. So we built this website called Help Main Street. It's 100% nonprofit. We have over 20,000 restaurants. And it's just a website where you can go and find all the restaurants in America and buy a gift card that you can use when they open, if they ever open, with the offset chance that maybe they'll never open. But this is a much needed cash that they need, and hopefully you're rooting for them and you're sending their way as well. So that was the purpose of Help Main Street, and we've raised over $1 million since. And the highlight of that project is Eva Longoria made a video about it. So just wanted to put that out there. Shameless plug for Eva Longoria.
All right, awesome. So Lior, COVID has accelerated digital transformation across all industries, as we know. Small businesses have had to adapt at warp speed. You work building products, solutions for restaurants at Square, of which they have over 2 million businesses that operate on your platform to scale efficiently. How has Square been able to help these businesses pivot?
Yeah, definitely. So Square is a huge ecosystem of products across many offerings like loyalty, online ordering, delivery, pickup, shipping. It consolidates orders with partners of all different types of ordering systems. And it was really helpful for restaurants who needed to transition their business, maybe open up a new revenue stream, transition to online, or extend to a completely new business like grocery or something like that. They were able to quickly get up and running, didn't have to switch any of their systems with Square, and be able to combat some of the losses they were experiencing with on-premise sales.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the other tactical ways that you've seen businesses adapt during this time?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of restaurants. This is a huge, almost like an inflection point that retail had several years ago. Restaurants is having that inflection point right now where they're transitioning online, and this omni-channel view is really changed from previously. So we've seen a lot of restaurants who never had online sales transition that world, start doing delivery, start dabbling in some of that ordering, and then restaurants who have extend that business and really lean in on it. We've also seen restaurants tactically start different sides of their business. Maybe a restaurant starting an online classes for learning how to make some of the food they made on site, or some delivery subscription boxes, or entering into a different market like grocery, since they already have a lot of the goods to keep their supply running while they're also using some of the goods for their restaurant.
And Nabeel, I'd love to layer in some of your perspective there, since you're at the intersection of food and technology.
Yeah, I mean, everything Lior added is so true. And the one part I would add is what restaurants are finally doing that they're not able to, which is they have learned that 1/3 of their cost, which is supposed to be real estate, doesn't have to be that important, right? I'm talking about ghost kitchen, virtual kitchen, cloud kitchen, whatever you want to call it. Restaurateurs who are fighting to increase digital orders are turning on digital brands, right? Just like marketers have done for years, which is send 5 ads out and see which one works, and I'll go ahead and double down on that ad. Restaurateurs are now doing that with virtual brands, and they're doing that not just because they need to survive during the pandemic. They're doing it because restaurateurs, especially chef-driven concepts, are they're artists. They are maybe also bored with their concept, want to try a new one. And the third reason, they're also looking to go into new market that are not always where you'd open your second location. Now they don't have to sign a 10-year lease. They can say, hey, let me deliver from my friend's kitchen, try something out, get Square POS, go online really quickly, and see if there's demand for it, right? Tech companies have had MVP or just a first draft, if you will, that investors want to see. Restaurateurs had $1 million commitment usually. Now the process is getting leaner, and we're noticing that they're really adopting the technology, which always was, sold as a complicated system, but it's not really. The reason it was always made so complex seeming is because we tech people wanted to charge more, right? It's much simpler than that. And we want now it's a great time where restaurateurs are taking in all the education, are building on top of that.
Awesome. Well, George, I want to layer you into the conversation. You're in a pretty unique position in that you are an executive chef with a restaurant business, run one of the country's only USDA regulated whole animal facilities, while also running your own grocery business. So you were open during the pandemic because you were deemed an essential business. Can you tell us a little bit about how you navigated wearing all those different hats amidst the pandemic and what that was like?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that we did was we closed our restaurant immediately, and we saw a huge increase in our online grocery sales, which almost matched our pre-pandemic closed, like pre-pandemic numbers, which was really fortunate for us. But we had to do that with a huge layoff just because we didn't have the capital. So when the PPP became available, we were able to secure that, which made it very viable for us to stay around. It paid for payroll and rent. And I think if we weren't opened and deemed an essential business, that payroll loan might not have been as important for us, or we may not even have taken it. The grocery side of thing has really been a huge saving point for us, as well as having that wholesale side of the business. A lot of farmers came to us when that closure happened, as slaughterhouses, the big guys, were starting to shut down due to COVID breaks, and so those farmers started bringing their animals to us, and we would co-pack for them. So that saw a huge increase in sales for us, which also helped us kind of survive through the early days of the pandemic.
So what I'm hearing is it also created opportunity for some of the smaller players, because some of the larger wholesale businesses weren't able to get their supply chain where they needed to on time, right?
Correct. Yeah, my farmers they had no problem getting slaughtered, but what they had problems finding retail places to be able to process and cut their meat down into package sizes that they could sell on the retail market. With restaurants closed, those farmers weren't selling large wholesale portions anymore. They had to completely pivot how they were processing their animals. And that takes a lot more time and effort to retail package versus wholesale package. So we picked up a couple of farmers that were able to keep us afloat.
Wow. Emery, you have a very interesting story as well, where you had 8 bars and restaurants in New Orleans and Nashville, and you pivoted pretty hard in March. I don't want to spoil the story here, so why don't you tell our audience what you pivoted into back then?
Definitely a hard pivot. So back in March, my business partner and I have always been first and foremost concerned about our employees. And when we knew that we would have to shut down the bars and restaurants, we weren't one of those restaurants that Nabeel mentioned that had a really strong online order delivery presence. So we knew that there was no way we would be able to stand up the amount of business that would keep our over 300 employees working. And this was before unemployment was announced. It was before PPP. So we were frantically trying to figure out what it is that we could do to keep our employees working. At the time, my brother was running a medical technology consulting business. He recognized there was a need for people to do patient outreach. Some of y'all who are on this call today might have experienced it. You had a doctor's appointment and then it became a video visit. And if you were doing it for the first time, you may not have known what to do, how to unmute, how to show your video, how to join, what your password was. And so we were engaged by hospitals to perform patient outreach. So we had bartenders, we had sous chefs, we had baristas, all doing patient outreach, all calling patients every day and helping them get ready for their video visit. And it was successful and continues to be successful to this day because we're hospitalitarians first, because our people are good at talking to people. It doesn't matter if we're talking about something on the wine list or if we're talking about what their password is for this program they're using. It's all the same.
It's all about putting the customer first. I was curious actually, because we didn't get to talk about this earlier, but I was like, oh, how do you transition hospitality into healthcare, right? I was wondering, like, don't they need some type of a training? But that actually makes a tremendous amount of sense. They have that training day in and day out. What an innovative solution. So as a quick follow-up to that, because the business is so needed right now, and, you know, unfortunately, we're still in the midst of this situation, do you anticipate running this telehealth company long term, or is this something that, you know, is temporary that hopefully you pivot back to your restaurant business?
I would love to not have 2 jobs. Currently, we have all of our bars and restaurants are open again. The cities in which we are based have some restrictions, but to the point where we've been allowed to reopen. So we've been able to expand our hiring outside of our former employees, and we now engage hospitality professionals from all over the country to do this work. I would love to not need to do this work. I would love for us all to be able to get back to doing what we love, which is having face-to-face interactions with our guests. It's an incredible opportunity for me. It's an incredible opportunity for our employees, but I think it's something that I would love very much to be temporary.
Got it. And since you're running all 8 of your businesses right now, how has that situation panned out with having to do primarily outdoor dining? Have you had any supply chain issues with dealing with perishables? What were some of the growing pains that you faced during the pandemic?
I think one of the most interesting things was seeing how a lot of our purveyors had pivoted themselves to retail. So where we're normally getting our wine or some of our liquor deliveries, they're not delivering to restaurants as often as they were before because they're delivering to the grocery stores and the wine stores, and they did their own pivot. So we've had shortages in liquor. We've had shortages in different parts of our business where we never had before. The oyster fishermen and women, the shrimpers, in the Gulf Coast, they're not going out as often because not as many people are buying, but those of us that are buying are having a harder time getting our hands on some of these products.
So Nabeel, you brought this up earlier. For a lot of restaurants, the adoption of contactless dine-in ordering, curbside pickup, creating mini marketplaces and utilizing ghost kitchens are still in its infancy, even though obviously we've seen that timeline accelerate due to the pandemic. How do you see these adoptions changing in 2021?
Absolutely. First of all, what an incredible story, Emery, in terms of how you guys pivoted. That's just restaurateurs like that. I've seen so many versions of that, but that is absolutely incredible. In terms of how we, us restaurant people were stubborn, so we don't want to do something until we have to. But when we have to, we will do it, and we will do it really well. And that's what's happening with technology in restaurants. We got into the restaurant business to serve food, to go ahead and have great spaces, design great spaces, pick the right plates, hire people, and serve great food. And then now the world is telling us, you also have to be amazing at technology, right? So I think it's an unfair ask. And I think, but the problem is it's here. The ask is here and we have to go ahead and respond to it. So there's so in terms of, curbside pickup, online ordering, all of these things, they're just so alien to us, right? So what we need restaurant people that are on this panel to go ahead and make the content digestible. We need amazing tech partners such as Square, who, like, for example, Square has POS, they launch online ordering for all their customers as well. Now those restaurateurs, my fellow restaurateurs, have no more excuse. It comes with, you have to turn it on, right? So it's just we've fought this as long as we could, and Grubhub and third-party companies who I'm not big fans of have had a lead. It's time for us to go ahead and get some of the ownership back. All POS companies are providing something, right? Everyone is providing something simpler. It's around $100 a month or simple enough where you can turn these things on, and there's no excuse but to try it and not be married to it. And when it doesn't work, not be upset, because guess what? We hire people all the time and a lot of them don't work, right? And we keep on hiring. We need to take the same approach when we look at technology, which is recycle through them, because there's enough of them out there. Pick anyone out there, but you have to, and go ahead and talk to your customers directly, because that's your responsibility, right? And I'll end with this example, which is Chipotle just started ghost kitchens in the middle of the pandemic. Before the pandemic, during the pandemic, their restaurants did really, really well, right? So they said, hey, we're going to do ghost kitchen because delivery works really, really well. That should be the signal, a pure, clear signal to the industry that this is not a pandemic move. This is just how the world will move towards. We need to welcome it, right? Every negative has a positive to it, and we need to welcome it, that we no longer have to get a corner real estate place for 10 years. We can open on the 5th floor, and we can close it off when we need to. So I think it's welcome change. I think it's silver lining. I think we will not let the pandemic happen to us again, and we will forever build against and index against something like this and build new concepts, cooler concepts that were designed to deliver.
That's a really interesting point. So do you think one of the silver linings also for these ghost kitchens is like, we might see more pain ahead in the short term, but ultimately the restaurant industry will have a greater chance of rebounding and maintaining profitability with these ghost kitchens, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we were at Bear Burger, we opened a couple of locations that we had to close because we miscalculated. We opened a restaurant in Chicago and we miscalculated millions of dollar mistakes, right? A couple of $1 million mistakes. We opened a restaurant in, let's say, in Santa Monica that we had to close. A couple of $1 million mistakes. Those could have been less than $100,000 mistakes. If we called our friend George, where are you?
Indianapolis.
Imagine we wanted to open in Indianapolis. I called George. I'm like, George, can I use your kitchen to try out and see if the people even like my burgers? Right. And I think those are the relationships and community chefs already have. Now we can go ahead and use that to go ahead and monetize it and use it to our own benefit. So I'm super optimistic about this space.
Awesome. So virtual experiences have been some of the creative ways that restaurants have come up with to still create touch points with their customers, from chefs doing virtual cooking classes to wine tastings. And I think, George, you created a really interesting touch point as well. Tell us what you did with some of that PPP money.
Yeah, so we actually took it and invested in a van. So we were getting our whole animals freighted to us from a company. And so for actually a little bit less money a month, we're able to invest in something we can gain some equity in. And not only that, we're able to make deliveries to our customers' contact list. So where it was something we didn't offer before, or we were using a third-party group like Grubhub or Uber Eats, which, like Nabeel, I'm not very big fan of myself. We were able to drop those providers and do it directly ourselves through online ordering, through a couple different platforms, whether it's grocery or hot food. So it actually saved us money, and we were able to gain more customers that way. And we still haven't allowed anybody inside. So that's been a way to still remain profitable, or at least break even right now, and still not let anybody inside. That delivery is a huge part of our business right now.
Yeah, but to Lior's point earlier too, about customer loyalty, right? It creates that touch point with your customers. Are there any other ways that you've been able to kind of maintain that in-person connection in a safe, socially distanced way to increase customer loyalty?
Yeah, we've created a online subscription service where people are able to go online and purchase a meat box subscription through the same people that they know online. They get to go onto the website, they get to watch our video, they get to learn about us, they get to shop through all the protein, build a box, and then it gets mailed to their house every single month. So that's an automatic reoccurring payment thing where customers get to gain a little bit of loyalty through us. They also get a online email every month, and if they sign up for that, they get a lot of added discounts and bonuses and things that we send through an email chain that they get every single month. So then they can use that back for hot food or grocery. Any of our other multiple different, revenue streams, because we have quite a few right now that we've added since the pandemic.
That's awesome. You also built an app, right? So tell me a little bit about how, you think that apps are super expensive, but you were able to find a way to build one that was cost effective, right?
Yeah, so it was $500 for us to get this app developed, and we are able to control it right from the back end. We can add specials on there right from our iPad app in-house. It rings in. You can connect it to some point of sale systems, and it is a really great way. Android, iOS, both parties can download it, and it gives them like a nice little personalized message when they log in. It says hello. It gives them their name. You get to change the photo on the background, so it's very user friendly. They get to schedule pickups, deliveries. They can schedule days ahead of time, weeks ahead of time if they want to. And we've actually seen a huge increase since that app was launched. We do pretty significant amount of sales through that platform.
Awesome. And Emery, have you been able to adopt any additional technology? Obviously, with the telehealth business, you're utilizing a lot of technological tools and resources, but for your business side, for the restaurants, are there any types of virtual experiences or customer touch points that you were able to do to help with loyalty or efficiency?
Yes, I think most of the technology that I work in at the moment does not translate to restaurants when it comes to patient records. But what we did was it wasn't to monetize, but it was to connect. And we have a jazz club in New Orleans and we opened it up. It's a beautiful space. It's all wood. It sounds amazing in there. And we had it wired for sound and lighting as if it were a studio. And we opened it up to local New Orleans musicians to use it as they saw fit. And we did a bunch of live streamings from our channels and from their channels and promoted these New Orleans musicians who weren't allowed to play anywhere in New Orleans. And it truly, they expressed us that it really was a lifeline for them at the time. And then we had all of our guests signing on, our Wednesday night jazz regulars were signing on and supporting and donating, but also just joining together in community.
Awesome. So Lior, you spoke yesterday about the power of customer relationships and loyalty, and we've been talking about that. Are there some other tactical tips or best practices that you've seen? You mentioned a couple of interesting concepts on the call yesterday that you've seen with other customers on the Square platform.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the biggest thing is the customer relationship and customer loyalty is changing from on-premise, where you can have that on-person interaction, to online virtually, and really being able to connect with your customers virtually, whether it's through, you know, the way you do your packaging, or understanding what they've ordered last time so that you can, you know, add something extra to their cart when they're ordering it the next time, or really creating that virtual hospitality so that your brand spreads throughout. So we've seen many restaurants, you know, customers are buying gift cards, or they're extending to retail that has sort of a branding perspective around it, and their loyal customers are buying t-shirts with their brands. We're seeing a lot of gift boxes that are going out with like different foods from the restaurant, or the subscription, like George mentioned, a lot of subscription models, really keeping that going, and also developing new customers that, while the pandemic is going on and things are closed on premise, extending to customers that haven't heard of your brand before, are discovering it virtually. And then ultimately, when you open in person, they'll know of that brand and come in more.
That makes a lot of sense. But why is omni-channel ordering technology so important for guests in restaurants? That's one of the, I think that you.
I think it's super critical. You know, it's a hospitality business, and part of hospitality is really connecting with the diner and understanding, how does the diner want to order? How do they want to consume their food? What are the ways in which they experience that? And so technology really just helps merge that all together. You know, customers may want to order in all different kinds of ways and consume in all different kinds of ways. And for the restaurant to be able to streamline those orders, streamline that fulfillment, really streamline the process in their kitchen to get things out the door in a way that's fast and high quality. Technology really at the back end of making that all happen, and you know, automating a lot of those processes so that the cost of being able to extend to where the diner wants to purchase, or how they want to purchase, isn't increasing as you extend to more channels.
Right. So we're now in winter, and unfortunately, it's seemingly looking like another shutdown may be on the horizon. Hopefully not. But George and Emery, how are you guys preparing your businesses for the months ahead? So maybe George, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you know, aside from adding a lot of additional focus onto the subscription service and all the new revenue streams that we've brought in, what we're planning on doing is on adding more grocery into our system. So as an extended grocery option, we're hoping to have more available items all the time, because if a pending shutdown does happen, we are an essential grocer. So we still will be able to provide the exact same services that we've been offering this entire shutdown. Back when Indiana was in phase 1, all the way to today, when I don't even call it a phase anymore, but we just had some more restrictions. You know, we're still operating the exact same way. So then that way, if something does happen again, we don't have to lay off people in the future, and we don't lose any of those revenue streams. So adding that subscription service, again, focusing on all of those sorts of delivery models, and like Lior said, you know, finding as many ways as possible to streamline getting our product into our customers' hands, whether that be, you know, online, a delivery, a curbside pickup, whatever it may be.
Emery?
We've continued to lean into the different ways that we can diversify our revenue, just like George was saying. We also have done a lot of consulting work, and we've looked to expand that portion of our business, because even though right now we're looking to the future, right now it is very scary. But that when you look at the numbers for 2022 and for 2023 and working with the local convention and visitors bureaus and the local agencies that are in charge of marketing cities, the numbers that they're seeing, it will get better. And people are still investing in the future. People are still building hotels. People are still building restaurants. So we are also trying to stay focused on not just the right now, but 12 months from now, so that when the veil is lifted, when we are all able to resume what we called our normal lives, we want to be ready for that too.
Right. That's a really good point. So supply chain issues is something that all businesses are struggling with, whether you're a $1 billion publicly traded company or a small business, especially a restaurant. But restaurants also have to deal with concerns surrounding perishables. So George and Emery, how are you guys handling that?
One thing that we have learned from this is the importance of the politics of restaurants and how important your relationships with local, state government officials are, and having that kind of engagement that gives you a sense of what might be coming your way. Because the worst thing that can happen to a restaurant is to be told that they're shutting down on a Friday at 3 o'clock when we've already ordered all the things, we've already prepped all the things, and there's nothing you can do to prevent that. So for us, we've really leaned into making sure that we are building and maintaining those relationships so that we have an understanding of when we're going to need to flex. And we keep a lighter inventory than we've ever had before on purpose, should that be the case, should that happen again.
That's such an interesting perspective. George, how have you handled it?
Yeah, talking on relationships, we've got really great relationships with all of our purveyors. And when the pandemic first hit, they significantly reduced the amount of days they were delivering. A lot of them were 6-7 days a week, and they went down to 1 to 2 days a week. It's almost impossible to know how much to order 1 or 2 days a week. So creating those relationships with those vendors and trying to find backup vendors. For us, our livestock farmers, we work with 2 farms in Indiana, and they're fairly exclusive to us. We probably buy 70 to 80% of their livestock. So we haven't really had to worry about that much, but what we have had to find is more outlets for grocery items. We've had the hardest time finding paper towels and dry goods, all the paper products that people buy for their house, so finding alternative channels to be able to purchase that, there's not just one distributor in the area that's going to sell product X. More than likely, there are multiple of them, at least from what I found in Indiana when the pandemic first hit. I was frantically searching for other vendors to be able to provide us with the product that we needed.
On that point, we have a couple of good audience questions that just came in. So George, I think I'm going to toss this one right back to you. How do you ensure best costs in a fluctuating market? And then Emery, I'd love your thoughts too. So just jumping off our discussion right now.
Yeah, just being very honest with your vendors and again, creating that relationship. Fluctuating costs is always hard to work with, but being on top of those and making sure you're checking in those items as they come in, knowing what your costs are, really getting to talk to your purveyor before you just start buying a bunch of items that you usually buy, and understanding that it has that variable cost coming in. As a butcher shop, we have a fixed rate for our animals, but a lot of places for, butcher shops, for example, or even restaurants, their protein prices may jump up or down on a daily basis. So really, again, it calls back to that relationship with that vendor. I think getting that relationship, and a lot of times you can actually work with them on prices. So, just being very honest, letting them know what your cash flow situation is like.
Right.
For the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, our bank account was about negative $5,000 until we got a payroll loan. And we had to work with our vendors to be able to keep supplying us with grocery items. And they were dropping off $1,000, $2,000, sometimes $4,000 of product a day, because I'm like, hey, I promise you guys, I'm going to have $30,000 coming in the bank in like 2 weeks. Can you please keep giving me product?
That's so cool. Emery?
I think it was really interesting seeing a lot of vendors that are also small businesses, like George was saying, have to to extend credit. And now a lot of them probably didn't have amazing people like George to work with, and they were burned. So a lot of vendors now are cash on delivery or net 5 days. And it has changed the way that we, as restaurants in general, I think about cash flow. But absolutely, relationships are paramount to the process. And when it comes to fluctuating prices, the relationship is the foundation, and then paying attention is absolutely key. If you're not watching those invoices, as those of y'all that have restaurants on this call know, if you're not paying attention, the cost for one thing over a week will go up and no one will say anything to you. So it's having people on your team and creating the kind of culture that creates detail-oriented managers that are going to look for those things and treat your money as if it's their own.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's important to stay diligent and on top of your expenses to make sure that you can pay them so you don't burn those relationships and then you do get credit when you need it.
Exactly.
Awesome. So this next question's tech focused. So Nabeel and Lior, I'm going to kick it over to you, even though it might not be your exact area of expertise. So what are your thoughts on 3D tours and virtual integration of restaurants? Currently working on marketing my restaurant via virtual access. Well, actually, everyone should have an interesting perspective on this. So, but Nabeel, what are your thoughts?
Honestly, I've not put in a lot of thought to it. I usually have something to say about everything. This is the first time I'm at a little bit at lost for words, so I don't know if Lior wants to go, but
yeah, you're in luck. We have a pretty big panel here, so
yeah, I want to make sure I'm giving informed messaging. Yeah.
Okay, Lior.
Yeah, I would say around the same. Like, I haven't given it too much thought, but I will say that we have had restaurants who have sort of marketed this experience of virtual and on premise. So they may have, a bunch of people sitting at home having their meals on their computer and, live streaming the restaurant, live streaming the kitchen, even showing the stuff being made. So they can really be involved in this like virtual world, even though, and there are people at the restaurant kind of showcasing, what it is like when they come in, because you are getting new customers, even though it's virtual. It's not just on premise that you're getting new customers. So we are seeing that integration between the two. There's a lot of talk on like showing, the kitchen display in the kitchen, what's moving through, and giving that visibility into, what's happening on premise so that the diners can feel more connected. So we are seeing restaurants do more of that. I don't know that I have developed like a strong personal experience with it, but
you're saying that Square doesn't have a product for this already for restaurants?
Well, we have appointments, we have kitchen display, lots of the different.
I'm joking. Yeah. I'm joking. A little joke, but I do think it's an interesting idea. So there's a question now for George. How have you attracted a new set of customers that you didn't have before because of the pivot, the changes that you were forced and needed to make during this phase?
Yeah, we have. We've actually seen a lot of what I would call commodity grocery shoppers make their way over to our, a little more, I would say boutique, butcher shop. We still try to make everything as affordable and accessible to everybody as we can as a neighborhood spot. But we've seen a large influx of customers that we've never seen before coming out and shopping with us because of all of these new services that we've been offering. And we've been doing a lot of targeted ads lately, trying to find what works the best, what demographic we're hitting the best, and what area. We're pretty focused on Indiana right now with most of our products. So that's kind of where we're main focus at the moment.
Okay, we have one last audience question, and then I have one final question. So what's your advice for finding workers who are comfortable serving or even executing an event right now? How do you deal with employees that are just not comfortable in this environment? Maybe Emery?
I think it comes down to trust. That you've already, not to lean on relationships yet again, but it is literally all that we do in hospitality. If you have created the kind of culture where your employees trust you to make decisions with their best interests in mind, we took a PPP loan and we paid people out to not work. We have done things. We started the telehealth company. We've done things to prove to our employees that we are going to do everything we can for them and to protect them. And that foundation of trust is what allows them to feel comfortable to work a night shift and not worry about anything that we may be doing that would put them in jeopardy.
Mm-hmm. Another audience question just came in. What are your thoughts on the post-pandemic environment? My predictions and projections show that people will want to get out and about. Should we double down? Anybody want to take that one?
I could take a stab at that one. I'd love to hear from other members as well. I think I think there will be a knee-jerk reaction of people who want to go out and want to go ahead and go back to the favorite restaurants.
Mhm.
And I think the only thing we should do is invest in how we bring them in and how we bring them in safely via technology. So, I mean, George's app, maybe, you know, you invest in reservations, right? Or if you are using Square, you already have reservations. I don't work for Square, I promise. It seems like I do, but I don't. So you go ahead and invest in those technologies, but I say you move forward. This is the pandemic doesn't, we shouldn't create temporary things for a pandemic and then go back to the way it was. Emery should, because she got into this for hospitality, not for not for what she's doing right now during the pivot. But everyone else, we need to double down on this. This is the future, and I'll give you a small example on why whatever we're doing right now to survive is the future. You know, a big thing everyone was trying to implement were kiosks that you walk up to, press on it, and you order your food. Right? We're not talking about those kiosks anymore. Right? Not just because dine-in is not available, but you also have to touch those kiosks, right? And we're moving to use your own phone, your pocket kiosk, order on that, and get the food will arrive to your table, right? I think we will see the effects of the pandemic for decades. Like in Japan, everyone wears masks and people have umbrella, right? And it's very normal. That's why for them it was never so bad, because wearing mask was a norm. It was not uncomfortable for them because of what they went through in the early 2000s. And similarly, we should go ahead and create a space where, you know, if George's restaurant spaces are back to normal, he should still invest and do what the activation is doing with the van, right? And we should all continue to go ahead and implement a delivery strategy because Chipotle is doing it. And not because they're struggling, but because they made a lot of money doing delivery, and we should as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, I think a lot of these things that are happening right now already started prior to the pandemic. You know, delivery started prior to the pandemic. Ghost kitchen started prior to the pandemic due to margins and the fact that, you know, you don't have to invest as much to start a business, test something out, see if it works. So I think it started before the pandemic. The pandemic just accelerated those trends that were already changing in the industry.
That's a great point. So we're pretty much out of time, but I have one final question. We've been talking a lot about the future of the food service industry as a whole, but I love to end with hope. What do you hope that 6 months from now, May 2021, will look like for your business? So, George?
Yeah, for us, you know, I hope that we can start allowing people back into the space again. I know me and my staff are kind of craving for that, you know, face-to-face interaction instead of on the phone like we've been having. And I hope that in May that we can, you know, keep at least maintaining a break-even point that we're at right now, so we can see it through till, you know, as long as we can. I want people to wear a mask, you know, that's all I need. And that's what I hope to keep seeing. And I hope people stay safe. And I want to be able to open again.
Mm-hmm. Emery?
Same. I can't wait to have people standing in Bayou Bar listening to live music. That is what I am most looking forward to. I think just that sense of community is, in 2020, it was a very dividing year, but it was also a year of community and new ways for people to interact and create connection. I would love for that part of 2020 to stick around and for us to be able to host those kinds of moments again.
Wonderful. Nabeel and Lior, any last thoughts on what you expect and hope to see in the next 6 months?
Yeah, I think, you know, restaurant owners have the biggest heart and hustle, and we've just seen so much to really stay there. And I think that's incredible. I can't wait. I mean, at least as a PM, I can't wait to get on site and see them using our products that have helped through the pandemic. Like, we're doing so many FaceTimes and like videos of the kitchen, things like that. I can't wait for it to be in person, but I want to see restaurants surviving this time and extending their revenue streams, not being afraid to try something new to really stay afloat during this time and make it to the other side.
And Nabeel, what about you?
I have two simple asks. First one is that we're not building technology to help business survive. and they're not on a month-to-month business. They're actually now proactive, and they're getting ahead of it, and they're trying to go ahead and increase revenue. I hope that day comes soon, and I hope it comes in 6 months. And a lot needs to happen for that to come. So we hope to build tech that helps them make more money. That's what we want to do, and not just survive and stay open. And the second thing is our company name is Lunchbox, and that's because we love lunches and we love taking a big lunch break. And I'd love to go back to the office and have lunch again together. As soon as I get to the table, everyone gets quiet, right? Like, because they were probably talking about me, right? I get it. So I just miss those office moments and can't wait to get back to those.
Awesome. Well, I'm sad to say we're out of time. This is a fantastic conversation. Thank you to our phenomenal panelists for their insights. And thank you to Square for partnering with us to bring this event to life. And last but not least, thank you to all of you in the audience for tuning in and asking such great questions. This is the last Forbes Small Business Event of the year, but stay tuned because we have more in store for 2021, a lot more. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.